Today I'm going to show you exactly how to build this Ancient Tek Temple in ARK Survival Ascended. I built it on the island, but of course you can build it anywhere. And if you're wondering why my island looks different, I'm using the Island Reforged mod, which is an upgraded version of the island. The base itself offers a decent amount of space with room for your dinos and tames on the bottom layer and plenty of space for a decent crafting area and storage room on the top layer. And then all the way at the top is a great place to add your transmitter, teleporters, etc. So if you want to live in a cool tech base, this can definitely be the one for you. I did design it using these Ancient Tek cosmetics, and I think it looks great using those. But even without the skins, just a normal tech look, I actually don't think this looks that bad. So even without the cosmetics, it's still a pretty cool base. Hello there, survivors, and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. As always, if you enjoy seeing these types of videos and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I really do appreciate all the support, and feel free to leave your suggestions with future builds you'd really like to see me do down in the comments below. And if you're wondering where on the island I built this, it's right at the bottom right here on the map. Okay, to get started, we want to build these foundations. This is the shape that we'll need. It's kind of a weird shape. This is the whole outline that we'll need to make this build work. And from this, of course, we'll start building up the temple itself. And we'll start building the temple right here at the front entrance. We want to start by having 3 stairs just going up here to the middle. Then we want to take out our walls here from the side. We want to place 1 here. Then we can raise 2 up here and 3 up there. We'll do the exact same shape over at the opposite side, which kind of creates a nice entrance here in the middle. We can have a large wall there and another large wall right over there. And then we can take out some quarter walls and have them go across the top of this part of the building here. We actually want to take out some ramps, and we want to have some ramps going up here. And then on the other side, we want to have some ramps going back down in the building. And of course, we can take out some shallow slope walls to fill in the sides. Here on the outside, we're going to do it slightly different. We're going to take out some quarter walls here along the front. We can then take out a ceiling and place it in here. And then for these sides, we can once again use some shallow slope walls to fill those in around the entrance. For the entrance itself, we want to take out our pillars. We want to make sure that we snap them here on that corner, have 3 of them go up, and have another 3 go up on the opposite side. Then we can take out our beams and have them go across from one side to the other. Then we can take out a cellar door, a metal cellar door, take out the hangar door instead, and fit that right here in the middle, which is going to be a way to enter this base. And you'll see that once it opens, it kind of goes over those ramps. So technically, I guess you could leave them out, but just as a safety measures, it might as well be under there. Because now it means that you can open the door both sides and still be able to enter. That's basically why we have the ramps underneath, because now you can still use it both ways. Alright, here on the corners, we actually want to add another wall on top of those large walls there. And of course, here along the sides, we actually want to make sure that we add in some slope walls going up. The same thing over here on the other side, of course. And here on the outside, you can either just have a full wall going into the ground here, or you can have a foundation. Ideally, of course, you would have another slope wall going into the ground, but your landscape might prevent that. In which case, just going for the foundation is probably the best option there. Then we can take out our roofs here, and we can actually start bringing them up. And we want to bring them 1 past this wall that we've just placed down. So we can do the same thing here over on the other side and raise this up just 1 past that wall we placed down before. So you can already see the entrance starting to form, and we actually want to continue this a little bit. So what we want to do over here is basically also make the other side of this staircase. So either continue the walls into the ground or add that foundation and then raise up these roofs alongside the side of what is going to be our staircase here. So then we can take out those stairs and we can add them right here. So one lower, and of course we can bring these up just one lower than the actual railing we've just made. So these should be 5 stairs high, and then of course a 2 wide staircase. And we want to do the same thing over here, so we'll bring up these as well until we get to the right height again. There we go, one more, and there we are. So now we can already see these staircases starting to take shape. Here for the inside of the staircase, it's quite simple. With some slope walls, we just kind of want to follow the staircase all the way up here for now. We can do the same thing here on the opposite side. Just follow along the side of the staircase, which means we can do the exact same thing once more over here on this side. So just following this staircase all the way up to the top, and of course back down here on the other side. There we go, all the way back down the sides. Then here on the inside, we want to place down some walls. We actually want to go in by 2 over here. So from the entrance as well, this is going in by 2, and we can do the exact same thing here on the opposite side. This is just to give some more structure here for the inside, but it will also help us fill in the sides of this staircase. The rest here, we want to add some normal walls, of course. We can do the same thing over here, and then finally adding our slope walls on top just to bring in this shape and making sure it all looks nice. And then actually for the end of these railings of our staircases, we want to end with a full ceiling just like this. And we can also make sure that we connect that up to the sides. We can of course have those walls in here. The same thing over on this side and once more over there. Then we can actually continue these shapes a bit more. We can actually add 4 roofs from these walls here in the middle. So we want to do that for both of them, and then they can end in a full ceiling at the very end. We can take out some more ceilings over here, add a layer right in front of this, but also make it stick out a little bit more to create a bit of a balcony. We want to make sure to go around the edge with some beams to kind of reinforce it a little bit more. If you want to make it look even more supported, we can be sure to add in some slope walls here right along the sides like this. Then over here in the middle, we actually want to take out our stairs again, and 3 wide this time. We can raise this up to go all the way to the top over here, just like so. And then all the way at the top here, we actually want to build a 5 by 5. So we can kind of just make this lovely platform here that is 5 by 5 in total, which is going to be the top of the pyramid where all of the different directions are going to meet up. Along the sides of the staircase, of course, we can add our slope walls in again, just following the shape of the staircase. We can do that on both sides, of course, all the way across like this. And for some additional details, we can add some little half pillars on these corners. There we go. So at the end of the initial stairs, we want to have just 2 normal walls like this. We can actually also fill in the inside over here so that we have those ceilings in place. And then on the corners here, we can add some large walls. So we want to do that for all of these to kind of shape up the entrance a little bit here. We actually want to fill up the top again with connecting these with normal walls. And then we can add in our gateways here so that we have some nice entrances to this layer. And we of course can also add in the actual gate itself so that we have some entrances for the upper layer of our temple. And as you can see, that will help form the front of the temple even more. So then we can take out our ceilings again and we can go across the front here, but we can also make it stick out by 1. So it's 6 ceilings in total here. We can do the exact same thing right over here. And then from this side, we want to continue it until we have 5 ceilings. So just like this, which will give us a nice shape to work with. We can do the exact same thing over here, making sure that we have 5 over here and then 6 over there. We can also connect this in to the existing shape like so. And then here on the inside, it means that we can have a little slope wall to fill in that gap, just like that. Then on the top layer, we actually want to make sure that the corners, we have these little ceilings stick out everywhere, just as we have over on this side. And we can actually repeat that same pattern everywhere as well. So we want to have these roofs coming down from those layers on each side of the building, just to kind of shape up what we're going to build. And then here on the front, you can start filling it in, except for underneath any of those existing structures. So this is the shape that we'll need. We'll do the exact same thing over here, filling this shape in, except that corner that we already have the structures there. So what we want to do is fill in these with our full walls. We can do the same thing over here. And then, of course, having our slope walls to fill in those remaining gaps. So that gets us 2 nice big platforms here to work with. We also want to take out our beams again, and we can just kind of go around the edge of the platform here. So all the way around. Over here on this side, we just want to go in by 2, so not go all the way through. And then the same thing over here. Just make sure that we have those beams going around the edges, and then just go in by 2 at the end over there. So then here along this side, we can actually continue these ceilings all the way up to this corner and go in by 1 layer of 3 here in this middle. And we can, of course, do the same thing over here. Then we can take out those stairs, making sure they go up to the top layer here from both sides, just like so, making sure they're fully complete. And then here in the side, we can kind of just build a giant staircase going all the way down to the ground over here, which should line up with the sides of the platform, of the foundations that we've laid down. So it's a giant staircase going all the way from the top to the bottom, and we can do that on both sides of the building, which is going to help us shape up the rest of the remaining temple. It's going to help us fill in the sides of the buildings, obviously. But first, we just want to make sure that we have these staircases go all the way down both sides of the temple, which again will help shape up the remaining areas that we need to work on. And now that we have these present, we want to make sure that we also add in these railings. So we're going to go in by 1 ceiling here before we add these roofs. And these roofs, of course, we want to make sure that we have them go all along the sides here of this staircase. And then over here, you can either go all the way into the ground, but then of course you'll need to be able to place those slope walls. It won't always let you. If it doesn't let you, you can just expand these with 1 extra foundation so that you can end the railings for your staircase in that way, just as we did on the front. And then of course for this side as well, we want to raise up these roofs. We can end this right over here for now. We can actually expand these ceilings just so that they line up the same way. And that will be the start here of the major staircase here on the side of our temple. And of course here along the inside of the stairs, we just want to follow the shape with our slope walls all the way to the top here, so that the sides at least have been filled in. And we can do the exact same thing over here, making sure we fill them in with our slope walls all the way up and down the staircase. There we go. Then of course we can go and continue on the other side. We want to take out our roofs again. Once again, go in by 1, and we'll have these roofs coming down the side as the railing for our staircase all the way from the top to the bottom. Once again, if it won't let you add those slope walls, you're better off adding one more foundation that we can use to attach the roofs to, and then we can bring it all the way back up alongside the staircase like this. We'll expand these ceilings just so they match the other side as well. And of course, once again, we can start filling in the sides of our staircase with those slope walls to make sure that there's no longer any gaps there. So we just want to go all the way from the top to the bottom, and then of course back up again on the other side. On the other side, so that we have the entire staircase ready to go all the way to the top of the temple here. Then we can take out our pillars. We can add 2 over there and then 1 underneath to connect back to the ground. We can do the same thing here on the opposite corner. And on top of that, we can actually add in a half pillar, just like this. Then we can take out our walls and we can raise them up to be too high to meet up with those stairs here. And we can actually also continue them all the way until they meet up with, well, what is going to be the size of the stairs over there. And we can do the same thing here. So we can fill this in too high. And then we can also fill in this side too high, just like this. We can take out our ceilings and make sure that we have a too wide path kind of following this edge, just like so. And of course, the same thing will apply to the other side here. So just making sure that we fill in this corner like this. We then also want to take out our beams and making sure that we go along the edge here of the layer that we've just built. We can do the same thing here over on the opposite side, making sure that we have that beam going across the edge. And to actually give it a little bit more details, we want to add in these railings that just follow the edge again, just to make those platforms look a little bit nicer. And then if you have JVH landscaping, I would add some plants on top of this. You can of course also use plant pots if you're unofficial, or maybe use a cosmetic to decorate it instead. Then we can take out our pillars again, and once again we raise them up by 2 here on the corner. We can do the same thing over here. Add a little half pillar on top of there on both sides of the building, and then once more raise up these walls by 2. We can do the same thing over here on this side, and also on the opposite side of the building, again raising all of these walls up by 2 high, so that we create these nice layers. And again, we want to make sure that we add the beams going across the edge here. We can do the same thing over here on the opposite side, and of course once more we can fill this in to be too wide here. And we can do the same thing over here on the opposite side. Okay, then for now what we can do is actually fill in the insides here a little bit. So from this side piece, we want to go all the way over to the other side of the temple, so that we have some ceilings to work with. And this is going to be one of the layers inside of the temple that we can use for our base. And we also want to fill in the front here, so going up to the stairs, just so that we don't have any gaps. We can take out our walls. We can actually fill in this shape with some walls just like this. And then of course we can fill in the final gaps with some slope walls, so that we can fill in the temple on the front. At least this is starting to look like a proper temple. We can actually continue to fill in more of this shape. What we can do is bring out our walls over here. We can actually raise them up until as high as they go, and then we want to have some slope walls there. Of course, we can actually have slope walls all the way down the side here, and then we can start filling them in. We just want to meet up with the existing shape, so we're just gonna continue like this, and that should fill in the side here. Then we can actually take out a large wall and place it right down here. We can take out some more full walls and have 2 over there on the top. We can then add in a gateway and of course a gate itself, so that we have a nice little entrance to what is going to be a little balcony. And of course we want to be sure to add some railings on the outside of the balcony there, so you can park some flies there quite easily. Of course, now that we've done that, we want to make sure to repeat the process over here on this side. So once more, we're going to have the large wall there, some normal walls at the very top, and then the gateway underneath it with the gate itself in there. Then we want to take out our walls. We can start filling in these sides all the way, following with the shape of the building until we reach the bottom. And then we can add in our slope walls just to fill in all of those gaps. There we go. And of course, alongside this balcony, we want to be sure to add in our railings like that, so that we have, well, the front of the temple and the entrances here complete and looking quite nice indeed. Then returning for a second here to the top, we also want to make sure that we fill in these tiny stairs with some slope walls, so that we don't have any gaps anymore over on this layer. So we want to just make sure that we fill all of those in. Then we'll start the staircase here at the back. So we want to take out our stairs and we want to make them go down by 5 in total. So just like this. And we can make them 3 wide over here. Then we can take out our ceilings. We can actually make this a 2 wide platform here along the back before we take out our stairs again. And then of course we can just make sure that we go all the way down the sides into the landscape. So this is going to be the well, the back entrance and the back staircase up to the top of the temple. So we just want to make sure that we add all of those stairs in until they meet up with the ground. Then of course we can also bring out these roofs all the way up to here. We can do the same thing over on the opposite side, just like this. We can end them with a nice wall and of course a slope wall to match up with the existing shape. And we can also start adding in these slope walls on the inside of the staircase all the way to the top and back down from the top to the bottom on the opposite side, like so. And actually we can expand this platform by 1 more before we take out our roofs again. We can actually just add a layer of roofs next to these staircases coming down. We can do this all the way to the bottom, of course, just like this. And then we can also take out our walls. We can add a layer of walls there and another layer of walls right over here with a final layer of ceilings on the top there. And then we can actually take out our roofs once more, because we once again want to build these nice railings for our staircase, and we can build it all the way down here into the ground. Again, it's good checking if you can actually add in these slope walls. If you can of course keep it like this. If you can't, you can have just a wall going down for the last one, just to make sure that you can all make this work. But in our case, it does seem to work. So we can just bring up these slope walls all the way to the top there. And we can do the same thing here on the outside, bringing all the way up to the middle. Once we get to the middle, of course, we want to make sure we do the same kind of railing here on the opposite side. So we bring down our roofs all the way into the ground. And over here, you will see that probably these last ones I'm not going to be able to do. So you can either just have some walls going into the ground, or of course, just have a foundation underneath them. And then for the rest of these, we can just keep filling them in with our slope walls going all the way to the top and all the way back down the sides here, so that they're all filled in and ready to go. And if you want to keep the sides symmetrical, because we have, well, a foundation on this side, we can of course also make the last one of the support a foundation on the opposite side, just so it matches. Again, really depends mostly on your landscape whether you have options to change them or not. Then it's time to start shaping up the entrance here at the back. We can have 3 walls over here and another 3 walls right over there. some slope walls right on top of those. And finally, we can have a layer of quarter walls all the way along the top here, just like that. Then here on the inside, we actually want to take out our ramps. So we want to have a layer of ramps going up. Here on the inside, we want to have some shallow slope walls to close off those sides. And of course, here on the outside, we want to make sure that we add in our ramp going all the way down into the ground again. And then if it allows you, you want to add in these slope walls to the sides, but most times probably will tell you it's obstructed. And then here on these sides, we want to have some quarter walls on top of those foundations. We can do the same over here. Add a ceiling on top of there. And on the inside, we can, of course, use our sloped walls to fill it all in. And this is just where you can add some nice details alongside the entrance. Here for the front wall, of course, we just want to kind of fill in the remaining parts. So we're just going to fill in the full walls and then fill in the slope walls to follow the shape of the stairs above it, just like so. Here on the inside, we want to raise up 3 walls here and another 3 walls right next to it. And then next to that, we want to have 2 large walls on both sides to kind of frame up this entrance a little bit more as you go down here in this what I would use as a dino pen layer. And then here on the back, we want to add 2 slope walls at the bottom 2 stairs. We can do the same thing over here on the other side, just adding those 2 in. And then the rest of this layer we can fill in with 2 high walls all the way up to the corner and around the corner, going back until we meet up with the staircase. And with the staircase, of course, we can just follow the shape along like this. We can do the same thing over here on the opposite side, of course, so we can start filling this all in. And then along the corner here, we want to raise up the walls to be too high, go back around the corner and meet up with those slope walls that we already placed down. And all along this edge that we just created, we want to create a 2 wide pathway all the way around the edge, of course. And in this case, all the way up until the other wall that we already created there. Then over here, we just want to make sure we fill in that slope wall. We can do the same thing over here. And then, of course, create that little walkway all around the corner here. So we just want to follow the shape of the building just like this. And then for the next layer again, of course, we want to raise up to be too high and we want to go around the corner again, just by 2 though, so not all the way across to the other side. And we can do the same thing over here, so raise up these walls by 2, go around the corner just by 2 wide though. And then up here, of course, we can add in more of our ceilings. In fact, this layer we can actually already bring all the way across from one side to the other to match up with the other side that we've created. So we can just kind of fill this all in all the way to the other side, just as we did over there. So we want to keep this for now. We want to have a large wall right there on the corner. We can do the same thing over here, have a large wall right over there, and then 2 normal walls right next to it. And then on the inside here, of course, we can start to fill in the remaining pieces for this staircase, including the slope walls, so that we can be sure that this is all safely closed off now. We can make sure that we add in our gateway and our actual gate. And then, of course, we can do the same thing here. So we have 2 normal walls right there. We can start filling in the sides of the staircase all the way through and start filling in the slope walls at the top to fill in the remaining gaps. Add in our gateway here with our gate, and then we have quite a nice start here for the form for the temple. We want to also take out our beams and add them along the ledge here. We can do the same thing here over on this layer, except that this one is going to stop right as it meets with the staircase. And then we can, of course, continue that same pattern over here on the opposite side of the temple, all the way along the edge here, along this edge as well, and then taking out the pillar, of course, in the corner, just like this. Same thing on the opposite corner, of course. Bring that back down and over here, and then a half pillar right on these corners, and of course we can add those half pillars on this side too. As for the back here, it's actually quite easy. We want to take out our large walls, add them right in here. We can do the same thing over there. We can add in our gateway in the middle, of course, for both sides. Have our normal walls above it to close off this shape, and then we can fill in the metal gates themselves at the same time. We also want to take out our ceilings, and then we can add our ceilings along the edge here until we meet up with the staircase, and then of course we can just kind of fill in the entire shape except for where it meets up with the supports of these the final top bit. So we want to just fill those corners in, and then of course we can do the same thing over here. So we just want to follow the shape and fill it all in like this, and finally fill in these sides of the building too. There we go. And then of course we can also take out our beams again and make sure that we add them all the way along the very edge here to just give those final details to the temple shape here. So we want to go all the way around the edge just like this. Then we want to take out our triangle ceilings, and we can actually build a nice little shape over here in front of these entrances, which are just going to be more balconies where you could park your flyers whilst you go in and out of the base. So we just want to add these in, and then of course also add in the railings along the edges here. So we can do the same thing over here for this one. We can also bring our pillars down onto the ceilings below. We can do the same thing over here, adding those pillars in, and of course the little half pillars on top of them. There we go. And then finally also of course filling in the walls for these side platforms. So we just want to make sure that we have those filled in. We can actually also fill in this side here, so we just want to follow the shape, and of course add our slope walls over there. We can do the same thing over here, just fill in these shapes, fill in the sides of these platforms over here. There we go. Same thing on that side. And then finally we just want to fill in a few of these gaps, so fill in those two so that we don't have any gaps to worry about anymore. And then we actually need to add a bunch of railings, of course. We can add them here alongside these balconies, these platforms where you can park your flyers. We want to do that all the way across. And then of course also on this bottom layer we want to make sure that we add in our railings all the way to the very end, and in this case up the staircase, just to make sure that it all looks nicely connected. And we can keep this going all the way around the edge here, all the way back into the side of the temple, and then also for these balconies up here, of course. So we just want to make sure that they all have their little safety railings. Now we're definitely getting somewhere with the temple. We actually want to add in a few details. So we want to have these supports right over here on the front of the temple. We can do the same thing on that side. And then of course, if we go back to the back of the temple, we want to make sure that we do the same thing. So just a few extra supports here, just to make it all look a little bit nicer and a little bit more detailed in general. Now for the interior, you've got a few choices. If you want to maximize the space, what would be best is just to make this layer entirely out of ceilings. So you have a full layer here, and then instead of having an internal staircase, just use the staircases on the outside and go in and out. That's not what I did for my original design, but still, to maximize space, that is what I would recommend. And otherwise, It's quite easy to add like a staircase in off to the side. I'll show an example later in the tour. But yeah, to maximize the space that you have available up here, of course, what you want to do is just make sure you fill it all in. You could, of course, leave like a little gap somewhere so you could fly up and down that way, or, you know, whatever you prefer. If you've got mods installed like ASR, you could, of course, use some televators to quickly get up and down, or you could just use some teleporters, which is even possible in vanilla, of course, with just default destination, so you can quickly go up and down by pressing the reload button. All of those are options, but yeah, for maximize space, this is what you want to do. Just fill in the entire space with your ceiling, so you have a pretty big room up here and a pretty big room down here. And of course, here at the back, we actually need to finish the entrance itself. So over here, we want to make sure that we raise up 3 pillars. We can do the same thing over there. Then we can have 3 beams going across the top. And this should allow us to snap in the hangar door on this side too, so that we can also enter and exit from this side of the temple with another nice big entrance, so that even some of the bigger creatures can easily go in and out of the temple base. Now, we already have a pretty nice looking temple, but there is a final layer here on the top that we want to add. So we want to have 3 walls over here on these corners, and we're going to do that for each corner of the build, just so that we can build a little bit of an addition here at the top, which is supposed perfect for like a transmitter or something like that. There we go. So we just want to start with these walls. Then we want to take out our roofs and have a layer just like this around the edges. There we go. Same over here. And then one more side to make it all fit together. Then, of course, we can also take out our roof corners so that we can blend these layers together with each other. There we go. So we just want to make sure that we go all the way around fixing this. And then we can take out our beams once more to add a layer of those in the mix again. So we want to just follow the shape of the building that we have up here. So just make sure that the whole square has a nice layer of beams around the edges. And from there, we can actually take out our roofs again. We can fill in another layer of roofs. We can, of course, go all around the building again, just to make this shape come together. And then we want to add another layer of roofs, so that we have 3 on each side. There we go. Then we can take out our roof corners once more, fill in those roof corners for this layer. There we go, all the way through. And the same thing for the final sides here. There we are. And then for the top layer again, we want to make sure that we add in a layer of our beams going all the way around from one side to the other. Now, if you're not going to skin this, you probably want to use like a greenhouse glass here, so that is a nice window, but we want to fill in the top with some ceilings. And if you're using the Ancient Tek skins, you can just have a pillar here in the middle, because you have some really cool details that you can place on top of those pillars. You can actually have a bunch of little pillars everywhere to add details like that. But even without the skins, I still think it looks like a pretty cool tech pyramid. So then, of course, it comes to skinning the base, which is actually quite easy if you're using the Ancient Tek structure skins, as I did. Most of it, as you can see, is just the stone texture everywhere, including most of the pillars. What I've done is the railings, I've used those nice coppery skins. You have a bunch of these pillars that are added with these nice details, as well as some billboards around, but that's all optional details you can add later. But yeah, we want to have these lovely entrances here. You can see that the same texture goes for the gates. But yeah, the majority of it is really just skinning it with those stone textures. I really like those, but you can see I have a few of these pieces here in the middle, for example, that look like the copper, as well as the roof itself. And then we have the glass skin here on the top, so that sunlight is still coming in here to the transmitter room. As for the inside, I actually made the edges of this square out of those copper textures, and I added a little window here in the middle. So I used that glass skin again so I can look down into the dino pen below. But other than that, it's relatively straightforward with the skinning. I did add a little staircase in here so that I can go to an in-between layer before I go all the way down below. What I did is quite simple, like it's a 2-wide walkway here where I added some extra space. It does take away a little bit from the space down here. That's why I didn't include it into the tutorial. It's kind of optional depending on what your needs are, but just to showcase an example of what you could use the inside of the bottom layer of the pyramid for. You can definitely house a few creatures in here should you want to, because there is a decent amount of space here. But of course, the staircase definitely optional, because you technically don't need it since you already have the staircase on the outside. And yeah, the most of the work is definitely adding some details. So as I said, this is just a pillar skin that this custom cosmetic offers, which adds a great option for some additional details, as you can see around most of the entrances. We also have those billboards that are great. We have these for canvases as well, with the different banners of the island bosses, which is another great way to add some extra details all around your base. And then all the plants, etc., you can see I added with JV8's landscaping, which is a mod, so you can't use that unofficial. But there's also cosmetics that let you add plants, or you can just use the shovel and the plant pot from the Bob Tall Tales DLC, of course, to add some greenery and details that way. So that's how you can get it looking like the Ancient Tek version. And if you actually want to come and take a look, this is my community server. As you can see, it's free to join. Just join my Discord and you'll be able to visit this temple on the island Reforged for, I mean, as long as the server is up, which should be a long time. And you can come take a look if you're in doubt on how to skin it yourself. But even without the skins, as I said, it still looks like a pretty cool tech temple. And I have no doubt that you could skin it with other ones if you don't own the Ancient Tek one, but I did design it with that in mind. It definitely should serve as a pretty decent base. So yeah, there we go. That's how you built this Ancient Tek Temple. Hopefully you enjoyed that build tutorial. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video or the next stream. For now, goodbye.